So the first drive of the crash damaged C63 didn't go, well, so well.
Yeah.
But just maybe she's not ready for the road just yet, or could she ever be? Now this rebuild has definitely taken the longest and in fact been probably one of the most expensive, and it is still not fixed. I seem to fix one problem and then just run into multiple others. So we need to work out why the top radiator hose popped off, leaking out all the coolant on the first drive in the last video, before we get onto loads of other things which seem to have broke since that last video. Now this isn't the first time that coolant hose has popped off. Since rebuilding the car and letting it warm up, that top coolant hose seems to keep popping off. And there's only a few reasons for that. Now I've got 3 explanations to why that top radiator hose keeps popping off. The first one is just a faulty hose. That coolant hose is held in with a sort of push fitment. You push the hose into the radiator, then it's held in with a C-clip. Either of those could be faulty. My second theory would be that the thermostat is stuck closed, not allowing the coolant to do its full cycle, which then would mean that the coolant temperature would get too hot, over-pressurized, and then potentially pop off a hose which is the weakest, which in this case could be that top radiator hose. And then the third theory, the one I'd hate it to be, the head gasket. If the head gasket is gone on the C63, it could be leaking exhaust gases into the cooling system, causing it to pressurize and blow off that top radiator hose. But I can't begin to test whether the head gasket is gone or not before I fix another problem that occurred the other day. This fluid on the floor is power steering fluid. And when we got the car back from the unsuccessful first drive, all of the power steering fluid seemed to have just burst out of somewhere. This car is really pushing its luck, so I've got to get the under tray off and investigate where that leak's coming from. And it seems to be coming from these 2 pipes here connecting into the power steering rack. Now at first I thought maybe the 2 O-rings are broken and that's causing all the fluid to leak from there. But on further investigation on the seals, they didn't seem too bad, but I replaced them anyway. But whilst I reassembled it, I found the real reason why it leaked. There's absolutely no thread for the bolt to thread into to hold those 2 pipes into the power steering rack. Meaning when the rack gets pressurized, it's probably likely to push the bolt out and then cause all the fluid to leak on the floor as it did. So it should actually be an easy fix. We've just got to drill the hole out, re-tap the threads, then insert a new coil into there. And then hopefully now the old bolt will be able to thread in nice and tightly and hold those 2 pipes into the power steering rack. With all that done, I can add the power steering fluid and job is a good one. So after that small hiccup, we now should be able to test whether the head gasket is gone or not. Fingers crossed it hasn't, because that would be one hell of a job. So we're going to be testing whether the head gasket is gone using a block tester. This inserts into the expansion tank here. You then add this fluid, start the car. And then once the car warms up, we're looking to see whether that fluid turns any colour but blue. If the fluid stays blue, then it's good. If it changes to green or yellow, then exhaust gases are getting into the cooling system, meaning the head gasket has failed. Well, it's not looking good for me. So obviously the chemical in here should have stayed blue, and that to me has gone a yellowy greeny colour, which kind of is suggesting that exhaust gases are getting inside the cooling system, which means that potentially the head gasket has gone. I am going to just run another test and just, well, I don't know if that's going to make any difference, but I'm going to do one more test and, well, we're going to see, does this engine have to come out? It's back in with the block tester. Whilst I sat back and tried not to think about how hard it would be to change a head gasket on the C63, I thought about more positive things, like how easy it was to create a website using Squarespace, who have sponsored today's video. Now Squarespace do everything from websites to online stores to marketing tools and analytics. It is the all-in-one platform to build and run your business. Check this out. See, once you visit squarespace.com, it's self-explanatory from there. There's loads of different templates to choose from that you can choose best suits your brand. Once you've got your template, you can then go in and edit your site. It's as easy as drag and dropping your own photos in there, your own logos in there, and alongside that you can sell physical products and also digital products as well. Squarespace really is the all-in-one platform. So when you need a website, head to squarespace.com or just click the link in the description box below, and when you're ready to launch, use code Matt Armstrong, and that's going to give you 10% of your first website or domain name. Let's go see how that head gasket's looking. It's not looking good. It is not looking good. That is definitely a yellow. I'm telling you, with this car, it is 2 steps forward and then about 5 steps back every single time. As much as I want this test to be wrong, it can't be wrong. It's scientific chemical reaction, unless you guys know something different to what I do, which kind of leaves me with probably 2 options now. But on that note, I wasn't willing to give up. Before I went to 100% confirm that the head gasket is gone, I went outside just to use the same tester on the Maserati. And what do you know? It turned yellow. So potentially we could have got off the hook here because, well, that's from the Maserati. Do we have a faulty tester or 2 faulty cars? I can't see us having 2 faulty cars. Perhaps we have a faulty tester. I think I should probably go and get another one. So after going out and getting some new fluid for the block tester, I ran another test on the C63. And to my joy, to my excitement, and to my relief, it stayed blue. So I have never known that before. Did we get like a faulty test or something like that? But now, after testing it, it stayed blue. So it's still 50-50. Has the head gasket gone? Has it not? I guess the only way to sort of find out is whether we can solve this problem of this top radiator hose blowing off. And I guess the next test is, well, to put a brand new radiator hose on, and just to see whether that is the issue, which I'm hoping and I'm thinking is the issue. But, well, there's only one way to find out. So here's the new hose, and you can see the little cutouts on the metal part where that C-clip is meant to sit. Now I'm hoping that on the old hose, these parts are just worn away and the C-clip is just slipping off there when the coolant gets a little too hot. But to see if that's gonna work, I've got to remove the old radiator hose first. But it's pretty easy to get to, and it's really easy to remove. For once on this C63. With the hose now installed, I'm going to fill up the cooling system with some water, just in case it does leak again. Let's run the car to temperature, and then we can see whether that new hose has done the job. Fingers crossed it has, but we're about to find out. I've waited and waited, letting the C63 run up to temperature, with hopes that the coolant all stayed in the right place. Well, I think we could have solved the issue. Check it out, we are all up to temperature. 98 degrees in oil temp, 92 degrees in coolant temp, and all of the coolant is still in the engine. So we might now be seeing the light at the end of the tunnel for the C63. We've just got to fix a few more things before we can get it on the road and get it to the body shop for its paint. Now, since I bought this C63, it's had so many oil leaks from so many different places. We've tried to tackle all of them, yet still, there's still an oil leak. But I think now I've got it down to a single place where it is actually leaking oil, and that is this lower sump pan where it connects to the upper sump pan. This black part here, it doesn't use a gasket, it just uses sealant. We did it in the last video, but maybe the sealant wasn't too good. I probably made a mistake. So we're going to drop it down again, clean it all up, and then hopefully seal it all up. Now I'm losing count now of how many times this lower sump pan has came off. But this time is definitely the last time. Now it is possible that the sealant that we used before failed, or I put it on too quick, or put the oil in too quick after putting the sealant on the bottom of the pan. So this time we're going to take our time with it. Now that the lower sump pan is off, I'm going to make sure that the upper sump, the connecting area, is nice and clean, as we've done plenty of times before. This time we're using different sealant. It's JB Weld Black RTV sealant. Now the instructions on the sealant said run a bead along the bottom of the sump and then finger tart it up to the car. We've got to leave that for 15 minutes to sit there before the sealant becomes sort of sticky and tacky, and then we can tighten it all up. You're then supposed to leave it 24 hours before we put any oil in. So I cracked on with some other jobs, like lining up the panels for the body kit, which are horrendous. Well, maybe that was a bit harsh, but they're definitely not good. I want to get the fitment as good as possible before dropping it off to the body shop, just to save on a little bit of labour costs when it goes there. It's the gap between the headlight, the wing, the bonnet and the bumper that is quite frustrating with this kit. And as you can imagine, with it all being fiberglass, it's really rigid, so it's hard to work with. But it was passing the time for that sealant on the sump to dry. I even ended up sanding a lot off the bumper on the left-hand side, just to try and get that fitment nice and tight around the bottom of the headlight. I cannot explain how much I hate working with fiberglass. I hope one day that I'll get good at it, but until that day comes, I can only try. I have spent hours trying to get this bumper to fit the best I can, and look at the state of the workshop. We've had fiberglass filler and it's still not quite right. It sits a little bit nice around the headlight now. There's still a bit of a gap on the bonnet, but it's looking more and more likely that the body shop have got a bigger job. But the good news is, whilst a 20-minute job turned into a 20-hour job, we should have left it enough time now for the sump sealant to dry. So that means we can pop the oil back in the C63 and hopefully no more oil leaks, and we can get this on the road and to the body shop where finally it will be painted. Now I'm going to be adding the oil that came out of the car. I know there's going to be a few people which cry about this, but the oil that I've put in has literally only got as far as down the road before the coolant hose popped off, so I can't see any problem with that semi-used oil. Bearing in mind we did do an oil change whilst we was rebuilding it in the workshop. Okay, let's get this out on the road for the first proper test drive where, well, hopefully this time we don't break down. Come on, C63. Here we go, the big moment, the C63 out the workshop again. Second time lucky, as they say. I'm going to install my number plate from UMR Plates as always. I'll put a link in the description with a discount code for them. But now, this time, she is ready for the first drive. Okay, this is it. Will we have the same situation as last time, or will the C63 finally be on the road? I'm feeling more confident this time. The tracking is immediately way out. That is going straight and the steering wheel's like that. So that's a good start. Let's get on the road. I don't know whether it's the C63, this is what they're like, or it is genuinely this car and the gearbox needs a service or something. But the gearbox feels so like lazy and lumpy. It's so slow to change gear, and then the kick down. Oh, that wasn't so bad. The noise is so loud. Jesus. Maybe the gearbox does need a service. It just feels a little lazy when you change gear, but it is an old style gearbox, so press the paddle, then it literally changed then. That is a long change. I've been dying to test out this exhaust. We didn't really get a chance last time. Remember, we got the long tube headers on here with a standard exhaust system. So there's only one place where we can go and test this out. Fingers crossed it makes it there, but so far we're doing all right. Well, it seems so far the C63 is mechanically sound. It's lasted much longer than last time, and it is on the road. And of course, we've came to the most appropriate place to test out the exhaust before we drop this at the body shop, because it could be a long time there. Liam is going to do the honours right now.
You're behind me.
Oh, this is going to be horrible. Here we go. Oh my god! That is stupid! I am so glad I chose one of these to rebuild, and we're not finished just yet. What a journey this C63 has been on. As stubborn as she is, and as expensive it has been to repair this, I'm so looking forward to her being finished. But there is a few comments that you guys left in the previous video that I wanted to address before we go to the body shop. The first thing being the parking sensors. We didn't install parking sensors to the front bumper because we didn't have a stencil that I could go from. And after doing some research, it actually turns out the Black Series doesn't even have front parking sensors. Next up is the black mesh grille that we used in the bottom half of the bumper. Some of you mentioned it just doesn't look right and doesn't go with the rest of the bumper. Well, in fact, the Black Series uses the exact same mesh grille on their bumper. I admit it does look a little strange, but that's exactly what they use. And finally, the most controversial one of all, the rear wing. Now remember, we are building a Black Series replica here, and it was only right that I'd go for the Black Series rear ring, the same one they use, of course, on the Black Series C63. Now I admit it does look a little strange and a little out of place on the saloon model right now, but that's because, well, I believe it's because the rest of the car isn't done, and the wheels, which will make a huge difference, just sit so far inside the arches. And when we've got that proper wheel fitment and all the cars painted, I think it should come together. You guys have just really got to bear with me on this. But now it is time for her to go to the body shop where she'll get a full respray. Let me know what colour you would go for on the C63. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out. That is still echoing now.